Please let me ask, please let me say, peace to you. This is the house, this is the house of the one I wish the best for you. This is the house of the one I wish the best for you. Peace to you.
Hey.
Hey.
That's actually not a frivolous hey. It's like, here we are, like, I see you. It's a special hey. I was thinking about this song because it's a David Zeller song. David Zeller was a contemporary of mine. The two of us, we knew each other in Los Angeles. We were both in like what did they call it then? Like the spiritual aspects of psychology. And his path took him to much more orthodox practice and belief in Judaism. And in San Francisco, and I have no idea when this was, but I know it was while we were still living in California, there was the first like major Jewish meditation conference at one of the synagogues in San Francisco. And he gave a teaching that I'll never forget. There's a tradition in Judaism that if every Jew observed Shabbat one time, Messiah would come. And he said, he referenced that tradition, and he said he sees it differently. He said if the Jews who celebrate Shabbat traditionally would love the Jews who don't celebrate Shabbat traditionally, and if the Jews who don't celebrate Shabbat traditionally would love the Jews who do, Messiah would come. In both cases, unfortunately, Messiah will never come. It is so challenging for us to really open our hearts to those who believe or observe differently than ourselves. It is so challenging not to believe that, well, they're fundamentalists, but we're right. At a certain point in the interfaith work that I do, it became very clear that we're all fundamentalists. It's just a term we like to give other people. But like, why would we be doing something that we know is incorrect? We choose to do because we think it fits us, we think it serves, we think it's right. And I suspect everybody does. So how do we start? By bridging that gap and sharing that. Like, what we share is not what we think is right, but that we think it's right. And if we could somehow take that awareness and hook it in to a more inclusive platform. Does that make any sense? where there's no need for us to believe the same thing. But there's a celebration that our beliefs support our greater joy, our greater love, our greater knowing, our greater acts of compassion. So that's that song. And I celebrate his teaching. Did the slide change? Maybe if somebody in the maybe first or second row would bring a mirror. We were talking about putting a screen on the back, but those things are always more challenging. So I realized this morning I could see the slides on my iPhone. So if I could synchronize the iPhone and change the slides on that, then I'd have this. And then Tova pointed out, well, then I'd have to hold my phone all the time. But then I realized, well, if you could go that far, the phone could be the microphone. I mean, so if anybody's here from Apple, I know iOS 12 just came out, but maybe for iOS 13 we could. Are you serious? Oh, okay. I appreciate that, but the number 13 in Jewish tradition is a very positive, lucky number. My mother was born on the 13th. What month? December. Oh no, you're much older. Huh? Okay, we're going to take a slight break now. We're going to... That's all camera needs. Traditionally, the very first thing we say in the morning when we wake up is thank you. That should be on the screen. And because the Hebrew is challenging, shehechazarta bi requires enough repetition so it's comfortable. We've made the English so it can be sung as well. So I invite you, because the words are the words, but gratitude is really a whole body, a whole mind, and a whole heart stepping into the moment and just saying yes.
Moda ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam. Moda ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam. Shehechazarta bi nishmati b'chemla, shehechazarta bi nishmati b'chemla, shehechazarta bi nishmati b'chemla. Rabbi Munatecha, the English. Thank you, living and eternal being. Thank you, eternal one. Thank you, living and eternal being. Thank you, eternal one. You have given me this life with compassion. You have given me this life with compassion. You have given me this life with compassion. Rabbi, you eternal living one. The Hebrew. Moda ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam. Moda ani lefanecha, melech chai v'kayam. Shehakazarta b'nishmati v'chemla, shehakazarta b'nishmati v'chemla, shehakazarta b'nishmati v'chemla. Emunateka English. Thank you, living and eternal being. Thank you, eternal one. Thank you, living and eternal being. Thank you, eternal one. You have given me this life with compassion. You have given me this life with compassion. You have given me this life with compassion. Thank you, eternal living one. Nice.
I think the hardest thing to do is get where you are, like to get here. I don't know how your mind is, but it's kind of the nature of the mind to be carrying around all kinds of stuff. You know, just it's without calling it good or bad. Just that's how it is. We bring to a moment our past. We bring to a moment our present, and we bring to the moment our imagined future. It's kind of interesting to notice that the past opens up just like infinitely. There's never an ending to what comes to us from the past. And the future opens up also without limit. There's just all kinds of imaginings and all kinds of fantasies and all kinds of yearnings and all kinds of fears. All kinds of possible comforts and all kinds of possible discomforts. And then there's right now. And sometimes the right now gets lost, sandwiched somewhere between an infinitely expanding past and an infinitely expanding future. So it always seems to me at the beginning of any kind of significant worship experience, I think he's taking control of the slides now. You know, it's like a fiber optic cable, you know, like my experience of consciousness. It's like there's all kinds of possible strands, and you pick a strand, and then you follow it, and you see where it goes. You got to pick a strand, and then sometimes another strand pops in, like just then, and then that's a strand, and you go, wait a minute, where was that other strand? And how far along was I in that? Does anybody remember? Yeah. The task is to be present. Like, is your left foot present? No, really, most of the time we're just unconscious about what's actually here in this moment. Is your breath present? What would it be like if this is all there is? If this, the whole reality is what's right now? And that has the option of being wonderful, horrible, or somewhere in between? And what if we had the capacity to choose and to say, I'm really here on purpose. I'm really here because I'm supposed to be. I'm really here because I want to be. I'm really here because the purpose might be greater than I know at this moment. Like there are some things I know and there are some things I don't know. What's waiting to be known? So the Shehechianu blessing is, you know, it's my favorite blessing. It's our favorite blessing. And our tradition is that as we bless food, because eating is one of those times that reminds us of our connection to the planet, our connection to others, you know, because a lot of times our food has been prepared or arranged or grown, you know, by all kinds of people who are kind of invisible to us. It's been discovered that PCC and Whole Foods actually didn't grow that stuff themselves. Saran wrap, it didn't come in like that. You know, so to say a blessing before eating is to, you know, even if it's just thank you. You know, even if it's just, this connects me. And then after the blessing, we always say the Shehechianu. Like, on a literal level, we're eating this meal for the very first time. You know, because traditionally you say Shehechianu when you're doing something for the first time. Well, we're always doing something for the first time unless we're unconscious. And when we're unconscious, we don't even know what we're doing anyways. I mean, you know, it's rote. So Shehechianu is one of the ways that we strive to wake ourselves up, to go here, now, yes. So please read it with me. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Blessed are you, Holy One of Being, universal creative presence, who holds us in life always, who supports our unique unfolding, and who brings us to this moment for blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shehechianu v'kiyamanu, v'higianu lazman hazeh. Amen.
Blessed are you, Holy One of Being, universal creative presence, who holds us in life always, who supports our unique unfolding, and who brings us to this moment for blessing. I think, Jenny, did you put this to that melody?
No, this is traditional.
Oh,
People
okay.
all across the planet are singing that melody. Maybe what you meant was, did we?
No, you didn't invent the melody, but I meant for this blessing.
I think it was a collaborative effort. Maybe Stephen was involved.
Okay. The point is, every Jewish holiday has a different melodic motif. So the melodies that we use for the High Holy Days are High Holy Day melodies. You know, and they kind of infuse the worship experience. There's different melodies for Shabbat. There's different melodies for Hanukkah, you know, and the festivals. So that You know, if you're ever wandering in a town and you don't know what season it is, and you pass a synagogue and they're singing a blessing, you'll know, you never know. You know, some people told me last night that on some of the seats on the sides, there are lights that come in the way of the screen. Yeah. So while we do the technology that will allow we'll get the people in to move the lights. Also, I noticed that when you sit over here, the letters are interestingly kind of different. However, they're at least the same letters, so we have that. So there are more seats here if anybody wants to get into a place where you're able to see the first letters, or you could just guess. Have you ever seen those things where they ask you if you can read, where they drop a whole bunch of letters? And on the one hand, you look at it and you say it's total nonsense, and the other hand, you look at it and you can read it. And you get how much of this is we're putting stuff together. Our brain is doing these incredible operations. I watched a piece of the, whatever you call it, the show where they bring out the new iPhones, and they talk about all the different processes it can do in however much of a second, and I think that's nothing compared to what we're doing just all the time and taking for granted. This is an amazing organism. So everybody whose name starts with the letters A to M.
First name?
Uh-huh.
Our first name?
Uh-huh. Your first name? You know it.
I think so.
Okay. Read the unindented, and everybody whose first name starts from M to the end of the alphabet reads the indented. A universe without any... And what is closest to us is simply mystery. Behind all words, behind all worlds, the life that cannot ever be fully known. We dwell in the wonder of spirit, and that spirit speaks as well from the depths of our own beings. On this journey, we are not alone in our questions for the one we are. That one speaks through each sensation, each memory, each dream, and whispers through each relationship. We seek to open to the one we share. We yearn to know the one who calls through each meeting of I and thou. From the depths of each soul, the spark shines forth, yearning to be received. One spark, awakening wherever life opens its eye. When we truly awaken to the life we share, we meet the one yearning to express through us. We meet that one through acts of loving kindness in our world. We meet that one through embracing all aspects of our own being. We meet that one when we truly meet each other. The world we see is so filled with conflict. It is the turmoil in the outer world that creates the difficulties in our own lives? Or is it the Perhaps both are true. There is struggle inside as well as outside. To think that we can heal one without healing the other is naive. Where do we start? We can only begin from where we are right now. There is healing to be done right here. And please rise.
Shall we sing this twice?
Together, Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamborach, bless with the eternal presence, the one who is blessing. Baruch Adonai Hamborach le'olam va'ed. Blessed is the eternal presence, the one who is blessing eternally.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamevorach. Baruch Adonai Hamevorach le'olam va'ed.
I know. Listen, what's happened is you've elevated to such a spiritual level that you forgot your names. No, this is really an issue. When we look at the levels of transcendence, there's this tendency to think that we can take our individual identity with us into levels of transcendence that are just bigger than that. We just think the most sacred part of us is the individual identity. And so automatically, because the individual identity is under the imperative of survival, and doing whatever it can to survive, no matter what the circumstances are. The problem is that's not actually all of who we are. That's like a condensation, a thickening, a restricting of who we are. And precious, but not as expansive and not able to as fully love, as fully know, as fully to realize the nature of the being we share. So it's great to forget your name. It'll be silent reading, but so we'll all read this together. We seek to meet the one in whom all else is. We seek again the fullness we have touched before. We would reach beyond the ordinary and welcome the embrace of a universe. There are words reaching out to us through time and space, words that challenges us to remember the one we are, words to carry in the mind, words to hold within the heart, words to breathe and words to walk, words to share through acts of love. There are words with which we call to the self hiding behind the pretense and unconsciousness of our days, a call to awaken as the one we are. And together, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Listen, Israel. The Eternal One awakens within us as our God. The Eternal is one. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Blessed is the holy name, whose glorious being is eternal.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai
And please be seated. Excuse me, I need to check something. Okay. So, I wanted to use the Shema as a meditation this morning. I wanted to use the Shema as an entry into meditation. So we're going to begin with a prelude to the Shema. I can't remember the year, but it was somewhere in the early 70s when there was a Hasidic music festival in Israel, and one of the winners of the music festival was a group that brought the melody of the Shema that we sing. And that was the first place that I heard it. And that became the melody that I used both out loud and inside for many years. The actual Shema meditation for me has shifted and deepened over the years, but for a long time it came with that melody. And in the Hasidic rendition of it, it started with a kind of nigun. It started with a melody, which most of you have heard. So we're going to start with that melody, then we're going to sing. You're going to start with the essential Shema, which is the words
Shema Adonai, Adonai Echad.
Shema Adonai, Adonai Echad, and you'll hear how that goes. And then we'll go into singing, and then we'll come back to Shema Adonai, Adonai Echad. Shema is listen. Sometimes I think if that's all we had, it would be enough. Because there's a tendency for the ego to think that spiritual consciousness is something that we need to be taught. Spiritual consciousness is something we need to find somewhere outside ourselves. And the reality is that we all come equipped with that. When we talk about altered states of consciousness, like I remember talking about altered states of consciousness, which meant when we transcended the limitations of the normal way we operate in the world. But at a certain point, it became clear to me that this is the altered state of consciousness. The altered state of consciousness is believing that we are separate, that reality is fragmented, that things are not connected. This is the alteration. And the meditative path, the spiritual path, is really to strive behind that altered state of consciousness to remember. So it's not something anybody can give us because we already got it. It's not a matter of getting anywhere, it's a matter of remembering. Remembering. It sounds like, oh, that. Oh, right. And it comes at first with a sigh, because it's such a relief. Because this altered state of consciousness in which we are normally wandering around the world is actually not a real easy one to do. It has a vulnerability, it has a fragility. It has a tendency to what I mentioned last night as sin, to forget. And the deeper our forgetting, the deeper the pain and the cruelty. So if all we had was the word Shema, if all we had was the word listen, listen. And whatever we're listening to, listen behind that. Listen beyond that, or however the language works for you. Listen beneath that. And then listen behind that.
Shema Adonai, Adonai Echad. Shema Adonai, Adonai Echad. Shema Adonai, Adonai Echad.
And you might want to take a word of that inside. Shema, listen. Adonai, a word pointing to that which is beyond word, beyond name, beyond concept, yet that which is always here. That in which we are always connected. Echad. It's all one. Or you might want to have the entire Shema. Six words unfolding as a path. A path that expands beyond the separateness, behind the fragmentation. A path that continually expands in greater inclusivity. Always here. Always yearning to be met. Essentially, we begin a Yom Kippur process with an appreciation of what's in our way, what stops us, what limits us. And we discover that what stops us and what limits us are our own negative self-judgments, our own forgettings, our own unconsciousness. And so we begin with recognizing that and forgiving ourselves. Because that forgetting will always be. That forgetting will always be in need of forgiveness. And that forgiveness is always present. Reaching out to us from the deeper expanses of consciousness. In that consciousness, reminding us that we are whole. That those forgettings do not define us. They simply remind us of the level we get caught within. And from that recognition and from that forgiveness, possibilities awaken. Possibilities of taking the awareness of our wholeness into our daily lives. Possibilities of taking a consciousness of deep security, of deep safety, of deep support into our daily lives. Possibilities of taking a deep forgiveness to hold every moment when a belief in limitation, when a restriction of possibilities grabs us. Listen. If the greater consciousness is waiting, yearning to express more fully, more lovingly, more compassionately, with greater wisdom through you, what would you hold in that consciousness? What feeling of yesness? What feeling of rightness? What feeling of gratitude? Listen. Listen to the thoughts that your mind would produce, noticing that wholeness, that rightness, that peacefulness, that love. Listen. Listen to the awakening within your heart, that deep belonging, that profound rightness, that abiding connection. And listen. Listen to the music of every cell and every level of your being. Breathe that rightness, breathe that wholeness, breathe that peacefulness. Breathe consciousness into the images, the feelings, the thoughts you wish to realize in this precious year before us. Because what awakens? What awakens when we allow ourselves to embody the lives we seek is the unfolding of a deep peace. Sim shalom tova uvracha chen v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu v'al kol yira'ei shemecha. Let there be peace, eternal source of peace, that we might realize the blessings of love and mercy, goodness and beauty which all humankind receives in your light.
Sim shalom, sim shalom, sim shalom, tova uvracha, chen v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu ve'al kol yira'ei shemecha. Sim shalom, sim shalom, sim shalom, tova uvracha.
He turned me off because I was singing. Sometime I'll shock him when I'll just start singing and I don't know what he'll do. He'll turn me off. We're just doing the first line with the High Holy Day melody. This afternoon we'll do the whole thing with the traditional Torah trope. Just to let you know it's going to revisit us again during the day. So one of the moments that I always look forward to on Yom Kippur morning is the moment of what used to be called the priestly blessing. In the Torah, it says, the priests are to bless the people, and it gives the formula. And we'll be doing that. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. A lot of times it gets translated, may the Lord or may the Eternal One bless and keep you. But that's an unfortunate translation because it sounds like it's not already happening. It sounds like it's something that's going to happen sometime. May that be the case. And the Hebrew actually doesn't say that. The Hebrew indicates a condition that is ongoing, that has been, is, and shall be in terms of the way we look at time. It's simply an energy that's always present, and it's we who are either open or closed to that blessing in any given moment and in any given situation. And where the priests used to give it, and it traditionally, anybody whose name is Cohen or Khan would identify as a descendant of the priestly class and would stand in front of the congregation, and you're not supposed to look while they pronounce. How many of you grew up in a traditional setting like that? But if you tell people you're not supposed to look, it's almost like telling people you can eat of any tree in the garden, but just not that one. I mean, come on. If you say, please look, people will close their eyes. As if that wasn't known thousands of years ago. This is how we, wet paint, don't touch. Is wet. So the truth of the matter is that there is the priestly consciousness that flows through each and every one of us. And to keep thinking that, no, that's the inheritance of just a certain group of people really is a kind of limitation. It's almost a strange kind of caste system, that exists within traditional Judaism just like it does in Hindu tradition. We have the priestly class, the Levite class, and the rest of us Israelites. And it conforms to what was happening in the mythical, metaphorical journey, as we were shaped as a people. But the truth is, everything that's happening in the text, while it appears to be happening in the outer world, is really an expression of what's happening in the inner world. All kinds of brilliance and all kinds of not so brilliantness. All kinds of meeting and caring and all kinds of non-meeting and non-caring. All kinds of sweetness and all kinds of violence. It's all within us. It's like, how do we talk about this? How do we deal with this? All the rules that are given are rules that came out of a particular time in a particular place, trying to deal with this thing we have to deal with. Trying to deal with ourselves. Trying to deal with each other. So it seemed to me that to really bless is part of our birthright. And the reality is that the blessing is not ours to give personally, it's always happening, so we serve as channels for that blessing. The very first time I experienced that was in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, which was my first student pulpit, and I was doing a bar mitzvah, my first, and I had to get used to Baruch. Really sweet kid, and I knew that after the Torah reading and stuff, I was to give a blessing, and the blessing is normally done putting your hands on the person you're blessing, and reciting the priestly benediction, Yivarechecha. And I remember doing that, and I remember something which now I have words for, then I didn't have words for. I remember like this bolt of energy, just connection. It was totally unanticipated. A lot of times when totally unanticipated things happen with me, I don't greet them with great glee. You know, but there was something real. It was some kind of connection that I had not known before. And that's what we strive for, because that's not us. Like it's a moment of opening. The blessing is always happening, and it's like, how do we be vehicles for that energy of blessing? That energy of blessing is essentially such a deep yesness. It's just holding another in yes. So there is a requirement for the priests who are to give that blessing. And it's a requirement that only has to do with that particular mitzvah, with that particular path. And that is, the priests have to love the people they're blessing. Now that's an incredible thing. And it's a kind of misleading thing, because so often love is a word. All of us know, what happens in a loving relationship, with the focus. Like in the early stages of a primary relationship, there's just an overwhelming awareness of that. And then as we kind of get into our routines, it's not that it's not present, but there's too many other things present. It's no longer the main focus, and we go from, I love you, to love ya. And to bless is to remember, I love you. Where love is bigger than person. Look, there are special people with whom that love awakens more fully than with other people. And that's a wonderful thing. But it's also true that the love that awakens is bigger than any particular vehicle. Because that love is unconditional. So it doesn't deny the preciousness of individual connection, and the individual connection is a vehicle for something that's bigger. Does this make sense? What comes to mind, I was mentioning that there are levels of consciousness where we can't take our individual identity, that are just bigger. Ted doesn't fit. Just like in the traditional teaching, there are 3 major levels of soul which are associated in some way or another with the body. The ego soul, called nefesh, the heart, what we would identify as heart level of ruach, and the neshama, which doesn't fit in the body. And then there's 2 more layers of soul, which they're too big for the restriction, for the contraction of the body. If the neshama can't fit in here, chaya and yechida are not going to fit in here either. all life and absolute oneness. What becomes clear is not only can't our individual identity go there, but our individual paths can't go there. And this is one of the things that tears apart different religious traditions and different people within even the same tradition. Because we think that, I can take Judaism all the way. I can take Christianity all the way. Oh, I can take Islam all the way. And you can't. Because that too is a contraction. It's a kind of specific that creates a limitation, that creates boundaries. And as long as I think I've got to take this all the way, I'm stuck. And it's a terrible dilemma for organized religion, because what it's ultimately saying is the purpose of your religion is to lead beyond itself. The purpose of this particular the purpose of this specific community is to expand beyond the limitations of its particularity. In some senses, that's obvious. But in other senses, there's such a resistance. And it's like that within every tradition that looks forward to some kind of day of healing, some kind of messianic age, or some kind of messianic person. The institution consistently works to inhibit that. Because should that ever happen, the institution would no longer be necessary. So most of you know that it came to a point for me when I no longer wanted to be rabbi of just a place that did Judaism. I do Judaism, but I know that this is a path to something bigger. This is a way to remember something that's universal. And I want to play with people who are sharing the treasures of their own paths, because that helps me deepen my own. So that's what a rabbi is doing here at Unity in Linwood, aside from taking over the whole place. You'd have to see the video to appreciate that. Now, all that was a digression. The point is, love is a challenge for those of us two-leggeds walking on this planet. Because to truly love another, we gotta love ourselves. In consciousness, it feels like it's a lot easier to love another than it is to love ourselves. Because to love ourselves is to accept ourselves unconditionally as we are in this moment. I was following the teaching of a teacher years ago, who said every morning you should stand naked in front of your mirror, hold your arms out, and say, looking at yourself, say, I love you. And I was trying that this morning. And watching all the resistance come up. Well, I can sort of love that. And then knowing that, I can't get anywhere without starting from a place of love. Because if I try any kind of change, I'll take with me that deep non-acceptance. So I may look at an image that I find, my judgmental mind will say, yes, that's better, but I've still got the unacceptance. The only way to get that acceptance is now. Tradition says, if you say you love God, and by that word I refer to everything, the whole of consciousness. If you say you love God and you do not love your fellow men and women, you don't love God. It's a great teaching. I would just extend it and say, if you say you love another and don't love yourself, you don't love the other. Now that sounds a little harsh, so I want to just soften it a little and say, you have not met the fullness of what it is to love another until you meet the fullness of what it is to love yourself. Love yourself essentially starts with choosing to be the one you are right now. Even with all the thoughts that you're not okay. Choosing, okay, those are the thoughts. The mind is doing what it does. So before we can enter into the priestly blessing, before we can get to a place of really opening to loving those we're blessing, we got to open to love.
Love is the way to God. Love is the way of God. Listen to the word of love within. Listen to the word of love within your heart. Love is the way to God. Love is the way of God. Oh, listen to the word of love within. Listen to the word of love within your heart. Love is the way to God. Love is the way of God. Listen to the word of love within. Listen to the word of love within your heart. Love is the way to God. Love is the way of God. Listen to the word of love within. Listen to the word of love within your heart. Love is the way to God.
And the second part of this is allowing ourselves to see that being in the other, to know that being in the other. And on the other side, to allow that part of ourselves to be seen. To allow ourselves to be seen. One of the moments, and it wasn't there alone, but it was taken from deep traditions where in the movie Avatar, remember, they would say, "I see you." Well, what are they seeing? They're seeing more than this. I see you. Ah, there you are. Ah, there you are. Ah, there you are. Ah, there you are. And just marvel at all the different faces of God. All the other faces of that one consciousness. I mean, when you think about it, this is really remarkable. All the opportunities, all the possibilities, if we just open to that love. Kodesh Ladonai, this one is holy. Because to truly love and to truly bless, that's what we have to know.
Kodesh Ladonai, Kodesh Ladonai, Kodesh Ladonai. This one is holy, holy to God. This one is holy, holy to God. This one is holy, this one is holy, this one is holy, holy to God. Kodesh Ladonai, Kodesh Ladonai, Kodesh Ladonai. This one is holy, holy to God. This one is holy, holy to God. This one is holy, this one is holy, this one is holy, holy to God. This one is holy, holy to God.
Now there are several things about these words, both the Hebrew and the English. The English will work with the same melody that we do the Hebrew to. I think last year was the first year we did that. How many people have a first name that goes from A to M? How many people have a first name that goes from M to Z? Okay. How many people have a first name of L? No, I'm just trying to even it out a little bit because the first half of the alphabet looks a little heavier than the... I didn't mean that personally.
Hey.
Have L, H-I-J-K. How many people have a first name that begins from K to Z? And how many people have a first name that goes from A J to J? Still more.
Really? I think you got to get the J's going.
What?
I don't know, there's a bunch of J's here.
Is there? So what comes before J? How many people have first... This is, look, every other year, when we started this, we blessed the men, blessed the women, and the women blessed the men. And that's been very sweet. But I just feel like we're transcending that. Because it's things are there's a different kind of fluidity, and that feels less appropriate. So I wanted to have a mixture. Next year, when you register, we just may have to give some of you a different name so that we can balance these out. So if J goes with the last half of the alphabet, how many now are in the J to Z? And how many are from A to I? Okay, that's where it'll be.
Acceptable.
So we're going to start. The problem is you're going to have to lead, so.
That's all right.
Okay. What I'd like to invite is that all the A's to I's will come up on the bima, up on the stage. And when we come up on the stage, be very respectful of the instruments over here. So there's the whole area here that's clear. And the reason why the people who are going to be blessed will be up there, it's so that those of us who are doing the blessing and might not know the words can see them. So before we do that, we're going to practice the words. Okay? So do the words with me. The Hebrew, we're going to be singing them, but the Hebrew is Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Well, you'll see how it goes. The second is Ya'er Adonai Panav Elecha Vichuneka. And the third is Yisa Adonai Panav Elecha Vichuneka Shalom. And the English, which goes with the melody. Let's do the melody.
Okay.
Yivarechecha Adonai
v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka, Yisa Adonai panav elecha, ve'asem lecha shalom. Ve'asem lecha shalom, ve'asem lecha shalom.
And the English?
You are blessed right now. The source of blessing is within you. The light of presence now illuminates your being. The loving presence holds you, embraces you. You are now the light of peace. You are now the light of peace. You are now the light of peace.
And so I'd like to ask the first half of the alphabet to come up on the stage area. And the second half of the alphabet will be down here.
I'll just stay here so I can, it's hard to move the mic.
And the second half of the alphabet is you're going to be rising and we'll move up front. Where are you going?
Second half.
Okay.
We're going to stay on the floor over here.
Okay.
We cannot climb.
Sure.
Thank you.
I think it'd be good if the taller people went in the back so we could have eye contact. Claire, Somebody's hiding behind you. There you go. Now, I'm speaking to the ones who are blessing. Look at the beauty of those. Each one a unique, perfect vehicle of the same consciousness that awakens in each of us. Moving through different experiences, moving through different history, moving through different genealogy, moving just, wow. But behind all that, just beauty. Just yes. Just gratitude for each and every one. Fawn, could you just stand so we could see your face? Yeah. What it is people exactly the same height, so thank you. There's somebody hiding back there. It's a Cameron. Move between Greg and... Yeah, look at that.
Oh.
Thank you. I mean, don't you feel that way? You don't want to miss anybody.
Right.
So I got to ask you, are you willing to love yourselves enough to love these? Traditionally, the Falcon greeting if it's comfortable for you, you do it when you bless us.
Or it will just ricochet.
Okay, now here's the secret. The secret is all those on the stage area are already blessed. The blessing doesn't make them blessed. But the blessing is a recognition that they are blessed. The blessing is a recognition that they've always been blessed and they shall always be blessed. The recognition is to help awaken that blessing within them. The greatest reward that was offered to an ancestor Abraham was that he would be a blessing. So if you feel comfortable, raise your hands and share these words. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom v'yasem lecha shalom v'yasem lecha shalom. You are blessed right now. The source of blessing is within you. The light of presence now illuminates your being. The loving presence holds you, embraces you. You are are now the light of peace. You are now the light of peace. You are now the light of peace. And just let that flow. Breathe it in. You deserve it. You deserve all the energies of blessing. When we switch, I want you to know you're not transmitting the blessing you received. You get to keep that. It's got a 90-day warranty. You get to keep that because on this side, you're a vehicle for a blessing that transcends the limitation of your physical being. It's a blessing that's always happening, yearning to be shared. So we're going to switch. But you need to come down first. Give you your seats. Now, who's going to get to the back here? Notice how perfectly balanced the two groups are. It looked more balanced than this.
It's the J's book.
It's perfect.
Well, that too. What? No. Now you have to, is there anybody you can't see? Not yet.
But I should help lead it, though.
Pardon me?
Yeah, I should.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what. You take this.
Yes, but I need to see the way.
You could just make them up.
I think I got them, but I wouldn't want to mess it up. I know.
Okay. Imagine that I'm down there saying the same thing that I said before. Imagine that what you're seeing is a group of beings who already are blessed. And you see them exactly as they're supposed to be. And you want them to be exactly as they are in this moment. And you know that what you can do is support the blessing that's already here with the energy of blessing that flows through you. So if you feel comfortable, raise your hands in the sign of blessing. And I'm going to put down my microphone because I'm not going to sing.
Okay. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka Yisa Adonai panav elecha ve'asem lecha shalom Ve'asem lecha shalom, ve'asem lecha shalom. You are blessed right now. The source of blessing is within you. The light of presence now illuminates your being. The loving presence holds you, embraces you. You are now the light of peace. You are now the light of peace. You are now the light of peace.
Now for the conclusion, we all need to step down where we can see.
You are now the light of peace. You're the light of peace. You are now the light of peace. You're the light of peace. I am now the light of peace. I'm the light of peace. I am now the light of peace. I'm the light of peace. I am now the light of peace. I am now the light of peace. We are now the light of peace. We're the light of peace. We are now the light of peace. We're the light of peace. I open my heart to this moment. I open my heart to this time. I open my heart to this moment. I open my heart to this time. I am here to learn, and I am here to teach. I am always here. I am here to love, and I am here for good. Hineni, I am here. I open my heart to this moment. I open my heart to this time. I open this moment. I open my heart to this time. I am here to learn, and I am here to teach. I am always here. I am here to love, and I am here for good. Hineni, I am here. Hineni. Hineni, I am here. Hineni, I am
So just for a moment, close your eyes, please. And I'm going to ask you to say out loud, I love you. And with your eyes closed, you could know that you are speaking to yourself. You are speaking to those you hold most precious. You are speaking to everyone here. And you are speaking to everyone beyond here. You're speaking to the trees, and you're speaking to the grasses. You're speaking to the ground. You're speaking to the four-leggeds. You're speaking to the six-leggeds and the eight-leggeds. You're speaking to the finned ones. You're speaking to the winged ones. You're speaking to the clouds. You're speaking to the sky, you're speaking to the stars, you're speaking to the sun, you're speaking to the moon. You're speaking to the past, you're speaking to the present, and you're speaking to the future. And all that through loving yourself. So join me. I love you. 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 We're going to take our break. We'll reconvene in here in an hour. And you might have in mind that during this time, everyone and everything you see, there could just be a little voice that goes in your mind that says, I love you. I love you. I love you. Thank you for filling this space with blessing, and thank you for filling this space with love. Thank you for filling this space with forgiveness, and thank you for filling this space with possibility.